Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled you're here. Today, we are bringing you an explainer that honestly functions as a total survival toolkit for your academic life. Look, we live in a world that is just overflowing with information, and navigating this incredibly complex digital landscape is literally one of the most critical skills you can master as university students. We aren't just talking about finding information anymore, we're talking about finding the right information and doing it safely and effectively. Okay, let's be real for a second. Have you ever trusted the very first Google result just to get an assignment done and out of the way? It is a wildly relatable temptation, right? The deadline is looming, you're tired, the clock is ticking, and bam, there it is. A beautifully formatted article right at the top of your search results. It looks totally official, it confirms exactly what you wanted to say, and clicking it just feels like the perfect academic shortcut. Trust me, we have all been there.
All right, let's dive into this. Here's our structured roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The first result temptation. 2. The ARAS Framework. 3. Beyond checklists, which covers lateral reading. 4. The hybrid 3-stepped workflow. And 5. Tadulico values in action.
Section 1. The first result temptation. The danger of the quick click is essentially a modern academic epidemic. Stopping at that very first official-looking result is so tempting purely because properly evaluating sources takes real effort. It forces you to slow down. But guys, this habit is incredibly risky. When you just grab the absolute easiest source, you are highly likely to end up relying on unchecked, heavily biased, or just flat-out inaccurate data. Remember, a slick website design does not equal academic credibility. We really need a formalized way to interrupt that temptation with a repeatable, solid process.
Section 2. The ARAS Framework. Now, notice the evolution here. A lot of you might be familiar with the old academic standard, the CRAAP test, which stood for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. It's a classic for sure. But take a look at the modern standard, the ARAS Framework. That's accuracy, relevance, authority, and security. We have completely streamlined the criteria and, most importantly, explicitly added security to the mix.
So you might be wondering, why security? Well, simply because the internet has fundamentally changed. Older evaluation tools never really had to worry about the fact that a single web page can harbor dozens of invisible tracking cookies. Today, information arrives bundled with aggressive data collection practices, invasive tracking, and serious platform-level risks. Security is absolutely an essential academic criterion now, because protecting your personal data, your privacy, and your devices is just as important as finding a good quote for your paper.
Think of these 4 pillars as your academic microscope for closely inspecting a digital source. First up, accuracy. Is it actually correct, verifiable, and free of glaring errors? Second, relevance. Does it truly address your specific research need, or is it just kind of loosely related? Third, authority. Who exactly created this? What real credentials do they have to be speaking on this topic? And finally, security. Does interacting with this platform put your data at risk? Seriously, memorize these 4 pillars. They form the absolute bedrock of modern digital literacy.
Section 3. Beyond checklists, lateral reading.
Now, what's really fascinating about this slide is a major critique brought up by contemporary information literacy scholars. Bull, Macmillan, and Head point out a massive flaw with relying on older checklist models entirely on their own. They note that checklist-style evaluation frameworks actually encourage a slow, feature-by-feature inspection of a single page. And here's the catch. If you stay on a beautifully designed, authoritative-looking page created by a highly biased organization, a checklist might totally trick you into thinking it's credible. Why? Because you are only looking at what the author specifically wants you to see. Focusing too narrowly on a single page can absolutely be a trap.
So, the solution to this trap is lateral reading. If ARAS is your microscope, lateral reading is your telescope. Lateral reading is the practice of immediately leaving the original page you are looking at. You just open up a new tab to check what other entirely independent sources have to say about that author, that organization, or that specific claim. This is the exact tactic used by professional fact-checkers. They quickly gauge credibility from the outside before they waste their time doing a deep, microscopic read of the page itself.
Section 4. The hybrid 3-step workflow. And this brilliantly illustrates how we bring the telescope and the microscope together into one actionable, super efficient routine. Step 1. Before reading deeply, zoom out. Open a new tab and laterally search the core claim. Step 2. Verify. If independent, credible sources actually confirm it, then you bring out the ARAS microscope for a closer look. Step 3. Reject. If there's no independent confirmation, You just treat the claim as unverified and walk away. It saves you so much time, and honestly, it saves you from being fooled.
Section 5. Tadulako Values in Action.
Now, let's tie this all back to something deeply rooted in your own local identity. In Tadulako culture, there is the vital principle of Nompangile, which means careful deliberation. When you really think about it, the entire ARAS framework is essentially Nompangile formalized for the digital age. By stopping to ask those critical questions about accuracy, relevance, authority, and security, you are practicing careful deliberation. You're refusing to rush. You are formalizing thoughtful analysis right into your everyday academic routine.
And then there's Nakaba, the value of resilience and tenacity. Let's face it, genuinely evaluating a source, laterally reading, and running it through the ARAS framework definitely takes more effort and more patience than just clicking that shiny first Google result. But that refusal to take the easy shortcut, that is exactly what Nakaba looks like in action. It's applying serious tenacity to your digital life and demanding high standards for the information you consume and share with the world.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. The tools are right here in your hands. You now know the dangers of the quick click, you are equipped with the ARS microscope, and you know how to use the lateral reading telescope. So the question I want to leave you with today is this: will you apply Nakaba, activate that internal resilience, and totally resist the first result shortcut on your very next research assignment? Challenge yourself to be a better, more deliberate consumer of information. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredibly vital framework, and I literally cannot wait to see you apply these skills out in the digital wild.